Welcome back to Out of the Rough. I'm Fred Arnold, and I'm joined by my friend Kevin Korenthal. Kevin, Forged by Fire Foundation. A lot of people don't know your story, but it's an inspirational one, and I know you just started a nonprofit. Tell me a little bit about your story prior to 2012 bicycle accident. I know you had a prior bicycle accident when you were much younger.
Actually, I was in a car accident in 1991.
It was a car accident?
Yeah, the spring break of 1991. It was a car accident that was my own fault. It led to a broken femur, which required emergency surgery, and that kind of produced poor results with regards to healing. I ended up with some nerve damage below the knee. Fast forward 15 years later, the damage had been so significant that it required the amputation of my left leg below the knee. And by the way, at the time I was signed up to go into the Navy before that accident. Obviously, after that accident and the residual damage, I wasn't able to serve. And that played a big role in the intervening 15 years, which were very ferocious and melancholy kind of times for me. Fast forward to 15 years later, the amputation of my leg, I needed a new attitude. I needed a new kind of drive and determination. So I started training, actually first doing spinning on stationary bicycles, eventually getting out on the road, and it turned out that I had a real love for the sport of cycling, and I worked very hard at it, and I kind of did that over the years to get stronger and stronger, and I think it fed both my physical and spiritual health, as well as it helped me be better in tune with, I think, other people who have experienced traumatic injury. Yeah,
so you get into biking, you get into road, and you'd go out often, 2-3 times a week. And then in December of last year, you were hit by a driver on your bike.
Yeah, an absolutely freak accident. Most bicycle versus vehicle accidents are usually a vehicle coming up behind. This was actually a vehicle driven by a 16-year-old driver, very inexperienced driver, who was coming through the canyons at a higher rate of speed than would be safe for his driving skills, came up a kind of a rise in the road that terminated in a kind of a hard right. He didn't see that right turn, crossed the double yellow, and smacked me head on at 40 miles an hour, which that could have went either way. I'm not so sure necessarily that it could have taken my life because I was wearing a helmet, but it very well could have paralyzed me below the neck. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to bounce back from the injuries.
Well, I saw the pictures. I remember at the time my daughter had swam a race with a broken arm because she didn't want to tell she had broken it. And I was in communication with you on Facebook after the accident and showed the picture to my daughter and said, you know, look at this gentleman, look what he's been through. Because you had mentioned, boy, what a tough girl. And she said something like, what a tough man, when she saw that you went through, and she was just an 8-year-old girl.
I think my language was more colorful than that, but for the purposes of this program,
your language was a little more colorful. I was trying to keep it clean, and I remember the post.
I was very impressed with that, swimming through a broken wrist.
Yeah, and I said, well, honey, you think that's tough? Look at my friend Kevin. He just went through a bicycle accident.
As a swimmer, I also understand what that must have been like.
Yeah. Well, how did you get the inner energy, the inner drive to come running back? Because you came running back. You did, you know, I guess crawling for the first month, but you came back hard.
Well, this is great. That question is actually kind of helps compare the difference between the two traumatic injuries that I suffered. I kind of alluded to some tough times after the first accident that I was in, and it was all about attitude. I was spiritually depleted. I was angry. I was frustrated with the fact that the plans that I had laid for myself had fallen away. I really had no direction. So it was a lot of years of wasted time. When I experienced the second traumatic injury back in December of last year, I had the opportunity to look back on the previous experience, realize that what I did there didn't work. So really, my whole focus, not that I had to force myself to be positive, it's just having a positive attitude, by knowing that a positive attitude was going to be a better result, just kept feeding more positive. And then I'd show that to people, and people would say, wow, Kevin, you're keeping such a positive attitude. And they were very complimentary and very supportive. That kind of fed into the positive attitude. It made me even more positive.
It made it infectious. And
absolutely.
Then you were inspired to do a 7-day, 620-mile $1 million challenge.
Yeah, the Challenged Athletes Foundation, every year ahead of a big triathlon they do, sends 100 riders, usually with about a dozen or so challenged athletes like myself, up to San Francisco to ride all the way down the coast, every mile, to basically La Jolla, San Diego area. And it's anywhere from 55 miles a day on the short end to up to 120 miles and there's 2 of those 100 plus mile days. Mm-hmm. Very grueling. It takes I rode 4,000 miles training for it just to do 620 miles. But it was an incredible experience that I hope to do again.
When you were riding and you're going through up a hill after, mm-hmm. 60, 70, 80 miles, how did you get through that? What inspiration did you get internally to get up that hill or get through that hot area or whatever it was? What did you pull within yourself?
Well, one of the things I thought was, and I'm sure a lot of the riders on there were other riders on there that inspired me. There were guys on hand cycles, which if you've ever tried to get the same kind of propulsion out of your arms that you get out of your legs, it's nearly impossible to do so. But these guys trained so hard just on hand cycles, they got up some of those same hills. So I said, you know what? These guys are pushing through it. It's got to be even more painful and even harder than it is for me. But if they can do it, I can do it. Yeah. So that inspired me as well. And just knowing that this was doable, it may hurt a little bit, but it's not something that's going to break me.
And a lot of people were pulling for you. Now what are you doing for others that are challenged physically, that really want to be athletes and get out there?
Well, getting back to that idea about the attitude for getting over traumatic injury has to be positive. If it isn't, you're going to get negative results. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people don't have enough positive influence when they are experiencing the residual effects of a traumatic injury. Sometimes it's a matter of resources. Sometimes it's just a matter of someone coming and saying, you know what, get up out of that bed and do your physical therapy. The physical therapist needs you to do that. You have to do that. And that was one of the key things about being able to bounce back completely from all those injuries is doing that physical therapy, exceeding what people were expecting of me, and pushing myself to the edge of hurt, not to total pain, but making it hurt a little bit so that I know that the next day it's going to hurt a little bit less.
And you're a pathfinder. I talked about that in a speech recently, that pathfinders help other people find the path. And really that's what you're becoming, because other people were the pathfinders for you.
Absolutely.
And that's so inspirational. Let's talk about Forged by Fire Foundation. How can those that want to contribute or follow you stay involved?
Well, Forged by Fire Foundation, which is being set up as a 501c3 charity, mm-hmm. Is kind of the vehicle that has been the vision of mine, and I've shared it with others who are backing me up and who are joining my board of directors and who are helping to put together resources so that once we're a full charity, hopefully sometime in the early part of next year, mm-hmm. We'll be able to have resources set aside to, whether it be send challenged athletes like myself or others that have already overcome this out to these bedsides to help these folks with the early stages of the rehabilitation, to provide the type of equipment and other resources that are necessary to have all the building blocks in place for a positive outcome, for the best possible rehabilitation from a traumatic injury.
And recovery. And your phone number, or how can they reach out to you?
Well, the forgedbyfirefoundation.org
okay.
is our website, and you can also search Forged by Fire Foundation on Facebook. That's probably where most of the information is right now, Forged by Fire Foundation on Facebook, or put that in the search engine, and both the web page and the Facebook page will come up in Google or whatever search engine you're using.
Thanks for coming in.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Very inspirational story.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Korenthal. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Out of the Rough. If you'd like to watch this episode online, go to scbtv.com or fredarnold.com. If you have any questions for me or would like to suggest some great guests like Kevin, email me, fred@fredarnold.com. I hope this information helps get you out of the rough and into success. Until we talk again, make it a great day. Bye-bye.